for breaking news and the info you can use.
Weekends with Joanne Vrakas. CJAD 800.
Well, if you're anything like me, you're still trying to figure out the ABCs of the English language eligibility here in this province. Bill 96 and Bill 101 before that have all moved the needle and left many of us scratching our heads. Here with some clarity on this ever-changing issue is Maître Frédéric Bérard, constitutional lawyer and political commentator and expert on the issue. Maître Bérard, thank you for coming on the show and thank you for joining us from Boston.
Yes, thanks to you.
So before we let you get back to the Red Sox, I know I'm not the only person. I mean, this has come up for me and a lot of people. I mean, I was away and then sort of trying to figure out what school to put my kids in. Let's go back though to why was the eligibility system put in place? What was it meant to do originally? Who was it meant to help or what was it meant to protect?
Yeah, well, how it works today with the Canadian Charter of Rights is that Section 23 preserves the right for Anglophones to send their kids to English school as long as they were born in Canada, they were citizens, and it doesn't matter if they're from Quebec or outside Quebec, but if they're outside Quebec, they need to prove that they did study themselves in another province in English in order to send their kids to
English school.
The school in question.
Okay, question number 2, because I have so many. Is it something that you can pass down? So say John Smith is an NDG. He went to school his whole life in English. He can automatically pass that down to his kid, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, but if John Smith were to marry Suzanne Hilaire, who is a Francophone who went to French school her whole life, who is allowed to go to school?
Well,
and where? Where?
Yeah, John can send, both can send their kids to English schools because you just need one of both parents who had studied in English to make sure to be eligible.
Okay, so here's another example because no, but this is true because I'm a 101 baby, right? I went to French. I went to French school. My husband is Québécois, Canadien Français, Québécois de souche, right? So he studied in French his whole life. I went to French private school my whole life. My kids are not allowed to go to English public school. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, because if I understand properly, none of you have been to English school in Quebec or somewhere else in Canada, right?
No, French school for both of us.
Yeah, so that's the reason why.
If you're a Québécois francophone and you went to English school for part of high school, are you allowed to say, well, I did some French and I did some English, I can send my kids to English school? If you're
No, you need to, as a francophone, that was a very important decision rendered by the Supreme Court of Canada, which is called Gosselin in 2002, if I recall. The Supreme Court said that the francophones in Quebec are not allowed to send their kids to English school unless one of the parents have studied at least 4 years in English. This is one of the section of the Bill 101, by the way.
So that starts to get more complicated there. Okay. So then the English private schools become more popular, even though they cost a lot of money, right? So there's a point system in place, which I think needs explaining. How exactly are these points calculated? Is it in the number of years? How does this work, Maître Bérard?
Yeah. That's an important question. This is Bill 115 that was enacted after a decision rendered by the Supreme Court again. In this case, that was Nguyen. And after that, the National Assembly decided to enact Bill 115, and it's a very complicated evaluation because you need to evaluate not only the years that have been spent in English, but also some sort of quality around it, which means that if the kids had some problem in learning, that has to be taken into account by the government and all that.
So the point system, so we each have points. We all start out with points. How does this work? Is it like a driver's license?
Well, actually, it's way more complicated than that because you have a quality side of it and you have a quantity side. So they have to calculate the points according to those two sides, if I may say. So the quantity side is not enough. This is what the Supreme Court decided in Nguyen, as I said. And then the National Assembly just prepare a very complicated assessment formula to make sure that the quality is also taken into account.
Okay, so has Bill 96 affected this even more in any way, shape, or form? Where are we at today? Is it still moving? Is it changing? Is it getting more difficult to have access to English language eligibility?
Actually, for most points, Bill 96 does not change anything to what we just mentioned, and the reason why is that. As I said at the beginning, if you recall, Section 23 of the Canadian Charter of Rights stipulate that this is a constitutional right for Anglophones in Quebec or outside Quebec to send their kids to the language of the minority. So, in other words, Bill 96, which is just what we call the ordinary law, right, could not modify a constitutional right.
Right. The constitutional right supersedes it. And the last question, which I think is a big one, this English language eligibility, when you have it, right, is it like, do you then carry around a piece of paper to get access to services in English? Like, what does it actually look like when you have it? If you want to prove it.
Well, actually, when you have it, it's that's a good thing to pass along to your kids that can, pass along to their own kids later on. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't change anything in terms of public services as of now, because if you recall, the first time we spoke together, that was like a month ago. Mm-hmm. Bill 96 is so confused that nobody knows how those public services work. As of now, we're going to probably need decisions from the courts to have a better idea of what's going on with Bill 96.
So for now, nobody needs to be walking around with any kind of papers proving this. For now, I said. For now.
For now.
For now. Maître Bérard, thank you again for taking the time, and enjoy Boston.
Thank you very much.